So, Luke Chadwick, welcome to Disenfranchised. How are you doing today?
Yeah, very well, thank you, Ed, and thanks for having me on.
No, it's a real honour to have you here. I remember seeing Football Fun Factory pop up on my feed in LinkedIn, and I looked at the name and thought I recognised that name. So as soon as I saw you, I thought I'm going to have to get you on the podcast one day just to maybe ask you a little bit about your playing career as a professional Premier League player. So yeah, very happy to have you here today and have the opportunity to ask you a few questions. So thank you for joining me.
No worries at all. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, Luke, as I do with everybody, I have to ask, what was your first job in your career?
So my first job would have been a paper boy, I think, as about a 12, 13-year-old boy in a local village where I lived. Then I was lucky enough the day I left school to move up to Manchester from my hometown in Cambridge to become a apprentice football player. So I didn't have a bad first job, as it were, playing football for Manchester United.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the newspaper round there, that must have been a little bit more important at that time, right? Getting a bit of pocket money in your hand.
Yeah, to be fair, Ed, I didn't last very long doing it. I think the winter months were too much for me. I had my mum getting up with me and driving me around in the car, and she didn't put up for that for long. So I didn't. I probably lasted about 3-4 months, but it was nice to have a bit of pocket money while it lasted.
Exactly. So, playing for or joining Man United, then that's obviously almost every kid's dream. I think a lot of them would probably prefer Arsenal, of course, my team, but I think regardless, that's a big step for any kid that wants to play football. So how did you get found? How were you scouted?
Yeah, so funny enough, I did actually start. The first professional club I played for was Arsenal as an under-13 player. I sort of played locally in the villages where I lived around Cambridge, at a high level of success, scored loads of goals. I was really fast back then, and I used to be the striker who scored all the goals, which obviously got interest from clubs. So it was while playing for the Cambridge schools team that I got saw by Manchester United. A scout come and watched me play. And then I was invited up there for a trial when I was 14, went up for a week, stayed in a hotel with some other young players from around the country and done well enough to get signed. So from the ages of 14 to 16, I used to finish school early on a Friday afternoon, get the train up to Manchester, play football for Man United on a Saturday and a Sunday, get the train back. And then when I left school, finished my exams at 16, I moved up there full time and lived in digs up in Salford and trained every day as a footballer. And as you said at the start, it's a kid's dream come true going to play for one of the best football clubs in the world.
Sure. So was it ever that your plan to do that, or was it just kind of that you just had that natural talent and it kind of just almost fell into your lap? Or is it all about the talent, or was there a lot of hard work and sort of determination to get to that point?
It was obviously it's a huge amount of sacrifice and hard work to become a professional footballer. Obviously, a lot of luck along the way as well that gets you there. But I think it's that initial love of the game from the youngest possible ages, from starting playing out in the garden at 5, 6, 7, joining the first team at 8 years old, and just absolutely loving it. So it's it doesn't feel like a job. It don't feel like a chore because you're lucky enough to be doing what you absolutely love doing every day. So it obviously takes a lot of hard work, but probably doesn't feel like hard work because what you're doing is what you love.
Yeah. So it's still at a fairly young age, though. You're kind of dedicating yourself to something that's got, I don't know what the chances are of somebody becoming a professional footballer, but you're taking quite a risk at that age. So was that something that you had a backup plan for at all, or your family had a backup plan for you?
Not at all. And I think that's probably
Wow.
where the game has changed slightly. There's more education in terms of it's very slim chance that you are going to make it as a professional footballer, or even if you're attached to a professional club. But from probably the age of sort of 12, 13, in my mind, I was going to be a football player. I had no doubt in my mind, and not in an arrogant way. I just believed that what I was going to do. And I was fortunate enough to do that. Looking back now, my biggest regret is sort of not taking my education seriously enough, because I just perceive that, because regardless of whether you don't become a professional football player or if you are lucky enough to become one, it is quite a short career and you want to have other options when it does come to an end. But I was so fixated in just playing football and probably messed about at school, didn't take my exams seriously enough. And without a doubt, that's the biggest regret that I've got in my sort of life to date.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it feels like after you've become a Premier League footballer that there's almost unlimited opportunities to you as a pundit or a manager or a coach or something like that. So I guess that's not really the case, though, right? What was it like for you at that point when your career was finished?
Yeah, it's obviously a really tough time, sort of mentally. That sort of probably the biggest issues I had was that loss of identity from the age of 14, signing for Manchester United. I always seen as Luke the footballer. When it comes to an end, obviously you don't really see where you fit in the world anymore. Where do you sort of go from here? And it took probably a good couple of years to sort of get over the fact that I'm not a professional footballer anymore, and I've got to look to do other things now and sort of define myself as a person, and not just because I was lucky enough to be good at football and have a career in the game.
Cool. I want to dig into that in a little bit more detail in a moment, but I'm gonna go back to your time with United. So you actually won the Premier League, unfortunately, in 2001. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it's sort of surreal now, and to think back to them when I did that, it is unbelievable to think that I was part of like one of the best squads United have had in the last 30, 40 years, really. And it is a great honour to have that medal. It's not as if, like, if I wasn't there, I'm pretty sure they still would have won the Premier League that season. But just to have been part of that and to be around that was something that I'm, of course, hugely proud of, and still probably pinch myself to this day to really believe that it was that I was part of that incredible squad that won the league that season.
What do you think was the key to winning that season? Because I mean, I quite like Arsenal. I'm not afraid to say that. I'm a fan of them. And around that time, we had a pretty decent team. And I remember a lot of the battles were United against Arsenal. And why do you think United had the edge? Because they had it for a couple of years there in a row until the Invincible season. I've got to mention that. But
yeah, and I think Arsenal and United were the best teams back then. And I think the reason why they had the best teams, obviously both teams had great players, but it was the sort of the intensity, the hunger of them squads. I was one of a bit part player who came on occasionally, but every day in training was so intense because everyone wanted to win. It was a squad full of winners. Even the five-a-side at the end of training, everyone would put their bodies on the line just to win that. And I think that sort of culture of wanting to win, of achieving, of nothing else would be accepted apart from winning, obviously very similar to Arsenal. And that's why them two teams were ahead of the rest then in terms of what their squads were, the makeup of the teams, hugely gifted football players, of course, but also with that mentality to go out there and to win at all costs.
So I'm assuming that was led by Alex Ferguson then, that mentality. So how did he kind of ingrain that into the players?
Yeah, I think Sir Alex Ferguson just had a way, like even when I signed there at 14, he knew everything about the football club. He knew me as a schoolboy player. He knew all the other schoolboy players, and he just took control of the club from the bottom to the top. So everyone had a relationship with him. He had an incredible knack of just knowing who everyone was. And as me as a 14, 15-year-old boy, knowing that the first team manager knew my name made me want to work harder than I ever thought I could for him. But that went from me to everyone, whether it be the chefs at the training ground or the kit person or Roy Keane or Ryan Giggs. Everyone wanted to run through a brick wall for the gaffer because of what he was and the relationship that he'd built with everyone there. And I think it was that sort of his super strength, as it were, was his relationship building, because everyone wanted to work so hard for him. And when you get that in any organisation, when everyone's pulling in the same direction, them organisations tend to be incredibly successful. And you can see what the manager done at Old Trafford at Manchester United was beyond belief, really, when you look back now at his record and the trophies that he won at the club.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. And it's quite interesting to think that he is talking to these people one-on-one, you know, and a lot of big corporate businesses, that's something that just isn't done, is it? You know, the CEO is at the top and disseminates the kind of responsibilities down through the chain sort of thing. So you kind of would almost imagine it'd be the same within a football club where, like you say, the chefs or the cleaners, whoever it may be, you'd think that he wouldn't have that relationship with them. So that's quite interesting. But for you personally, did he have one particular angle or one thing that he was trying to develop in yourself, whether that's a footballing skill or a kind of personality trait or those softer skills? Was there something that he was trying to help you with at any point?
Yeah, I think it was not just me. It was when you came into the club as a young player, as a schoolboy player, and you move up into a full-time. What it was as a schoolboy player, I just remember it being, I just loved it so much. Excuse me, because everyone was so happy, everyone was so enthusiastic. Everyone was so pleased to see you, and sort of that really developed your love for going up there. You couldn't wait to go up there. When you went there full-time at 16, it got a little bit more serious in terms of this is what is expected of you now. And I think for myself and all the players that went through Manchester United as a young player, it's probably the life lessons that you learned there more than the football lessons that stood you in good stead, regardless whether you made it at United as a football player, went off to other clubs or went into different industries. And that sort of the work rate, the humility, the way that you treated other people was drilled into you from such a early age. And they're, like I say, the most important lessons that I personally learned when I look back. They're obviously amazing to have played football with some of them players, but probably owe the club so much for the personality that it turned me into, for the lessons that I learned at the football club.
Excellent. So you mentioned quite a few players you've played with there. So I'm thinking people like Giggs, Beckham, Roy Keane, they must have been some of the names you played with, right?
Yeah, like they were incredible times to play with. Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs, David Beckham, Roy Keane, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Andy Cole. Like I could reel them off all day. So it was, I'm incredibly grateful that I had the opportunity to sort of play and learn from these like world class players.
So who was the best for you? Who would you say is the best player you've ever played with? And it doesn't have to come from United. It can be from an Arsenal team if you want. Yeah.
So the best player at United was Paul Scholes. Every day he was just a genius in terms of he could do everything. He could run with the ball, pass short distance, pass long distance, shoot. And we used to do so many sort of games in tight areas, but he just had like eyes in the back of his head. He still looked like he had as long as he wanted on the ball because he was so clever, so intelligent, and how he played the game. Don't get me wrong, there was incredible players there, but Scholes was just that little bit ahead of the rest, as it were. And to say that, because in terms of the players that he played with, obviously shows what an incredible footballer he was.
Yeah, that's high praise indeed. So I'm going to flip it to who's the most difficult player you've played against, or the best player you've played against.
So the best player, you'll be pleased with this, Ed, but I was on the pitch at the same time as would have been Thierry Henry. Obviously, I weren't playing directly against him, but to say that I played on the same pitch of one of the best players that's ever graced the Premier League, he was just like a Rolls Royce in terms of how he moved, how he got away from players. So in terms of playing against another player with an Arsenal history would have been Ashley Cole, who I played against as a young player. And going through my career, I was a winger and he was a left back, but he was really hard to get past because he was so quick off the mark, and you could try a little trick, try and go past him, but he'd always just get back and get his toe on it to stop you getting a crossing. So a little one for you there, Ed. Two players with a bit of an Arsenal history there.
Good, that's the right answer. Yeah. But yeah, Thierry Henry, well, absolute legend for me. But I was always like to think of myself as a Dennis Bergkamp kind of player. I never was, obviously, but that's who I modelled myself on. He was the first one for me that was a bit of an idol. But yeah, so I'm kind of keen to sort of move through your career a little bit now, and kind of not make this all about United and that period in your career. But I wanted to find out, because you've then gone in and played for other clubs like West Ham, Stoke, Norwich, and MK Dons, and then finally Cambridge. A couple of big names in management there in terms of Tony Pulis and Alan Pardew, and they're quite tough characters on the outside. But I'm wanting to find out, and we're going to sort of dive into it in a little bit more detail in a moment about Football Fun Factory. But I'm wondering which one of those you think would be the best coach for Football Fun Factory out of those three. They seem quite tough on the exterior, so I wonder how they deal with managing kids, or coaching kids.
No, yeah, and it's a really interesting question. What I was really lucky throughout my career to play under some fantastic coaches, but what I remember about, obviously, Sir Alex, Tony, Alan, was what they were like as people. I think they're the best. What you remember is how people treat you as a person, not as a footballer, not how they got you playing. And all three of them were absolutely fantastic people. Obviously, as you say, tough exterior in terms of what they're portrayed at. But Sir Alex was an amazing man, obviously, and you see what he achieved. But Tony Pulis always took your feelings into account first, in terms of, it was how he, obviously in football, if you're feeling good and you're happy in yourself, you play better. And Tony was always sort of keen to know how you're doing. He knew that family was a long way away when I played for him at Stoke, and was always sort of making sure that everything was okay with me. And that's what I remember about Tony Pulis. Alan Pardew, again, a really sort of self-confident guy who knew himself really well. You could see the way that he conducts interviews and that sort of thing, but still that incredible human side, a huge amount of, I think the best coach who've got so much empathy of understanding how players feel, because they've been in that position as players themselves, and now they're managing, and that's what gets the best out of players. When you understand, when you think that the manager, the coach, that they've got your back, that they care about you as a person, it's not just about you going to perform on a football pitch. I think that's when you find the most successful people that care about how other people feel, and it's not just about results, winning games of football or earning money at the end of the day.
So just go back to the question, who's going to make the best, who would be the best head coach for Football Fun Factory?
I'd probably have to say Sir Alex. I think he'd make the biggest splash. But again, I'm sure that we'd take all three of them, as long as they adhered to how we're trying to do things.
Fantastic. So talk me through then how Football Fun Factory came about, and what I guess what it was like after your career ended in football, and how you started, how and why you started Football Fun Factory.
Yeah, so like I alluded to earlier, when I finished playing, it was a tough time, sort of suffering in terms of not knowing what to do next, where I sort of sat in the world and done what a lot of old football players do, went down the coaching route, done all my coaching qualifications, got a job at a professional football club working with the young players there, and sort of just floated along doing that for a couple of years. And I just thought, this is it. This is what, I'm an old football player now. I'm a coach at a club. I'm just going to do this now for my working life, but just didn't enjoy it enough. I didn't get out of bed thinking I love what I'm doing here. It was just a means to an end, really, of doing what I do. And got to a point where I just didn't want to do it anymore. Don't get me wrong, some great work goes on at professional football clubs, but it just wasn't for me. So a couple of my former colleagues, James Cutting and Johnny Martin, that I worked with at a professional club, were setting up the Football Fun Factory, spoke to them about it. And the problem that I had at professional clubs is at them youngest ages, the kids come in, they train 3 nights a week, play a game at the weekend, and it turns into a job. And there weren't enough smiles. There weren't enough and people enjoying it. It seemed like too many little ones were just there because they thought they'll do that and they'll become a professional footballer, where in reality, that probably isn't going to happen. So at least enjoy the journey. It's still an incredible experience. Just have fun and enjoy it. So when I spoke to James and Johnny about the Football Fun Factory, about it being a way of engaging children at the youngest possible ages with different sort of unique experiences in football, and using football as a vehicle to develop positive life skills like teamwork, communication, sportsmanship, and to celebrate that in our programs just as much as the little boy or girl who's scoring 10 goals and excelling sort of thing. It's about everyone having the same experience and enjoying it just as much, regardless if it's the first time you ever played football, or if you're a highly talented little one who's come along to use it as a session for them. And the way that they spoke about it, it just reminded me of when I started my journey in football, a little bit older, at 7 or 8, when I played for my first grassroots club. And when I think back, and I've got incredible memories of them times, but no memories of a coach telling me any tactical or technical information. It was just memories of running around with a big smile on my face and enjoying what I was doing. And that's what the Football Fun Factory is. But from sort of the ages of 2, 3 years old, where we run our top sessions inside an inflatable football pitch, to the football fun and development and the football camps where we use all of our football inflatables. It's just an incredible experience where it's our coaches' responsibilities to engage with these children and sort of inspire them to love football, not because they're brilliant at it or they're going to become a professional football player, but love football because it's a healthy social activity that they can enjoy for the rest of their lives, hopefully. So that was sort of the idea behind it. It really encapsulated and engaged me, and it's been probably about just over 2 years now that I've been involved, and I've absolutely loved it. I feel so sort of happy and cleansed to be out of professional football. Don't get me wrong, I've got a huge amount of gratitude to professional football that gave me the life that it gave me, but it's so nice to be out of it now and doing something still in football, but so completely different, as it were.
You can tell you're really passionate about it. And actually thinking back to when you mentioned about how you started your career and just out there being fun, I can see that you were kind of lit up then talking about it a bit more than you were talking about the career maybe and the title winner. It's interesting to see, those kind of little facial expression differences when people are talking about things. And I think it's really great that you found something that you're really passionate about now. But I wonder, is there not that kind of same feeling during in those professional clubs? Are kids still not out there enjoying it with the same passion, or is it more the parents are pushing them down that route and saying, come on, you've got to act serious and you've got to, turn this into a business or career for yourself? What's the difference, I guess?
Yeah, no, I think there is kids that are absolutely loving it. Don't get me wrong, it's not every child, but I think it's them ones that are just there and they are absolutely loving it that probably go on further than the ones that maybe think that this is serious now. It's hard to sort of say. I'm not saying that professional academies are wrong or anything like that. Of course, the kids need specific and more training if they are going to get to them heights. I just think the children go in there too young. I think going into a professional environment at 8, 9 years old and sort of traveling half an hour, 40 minutes to a training session 3 times a week, I think the professional football academy should start later, so that you sort of give them real youngest children the opportunity to just play with their mates, just enjoy it and see where they get to. But because of the nature of the beast of what professional football is now, and all the clubs are frightened of losing that talented 7-year-old to another club up the road, which it beggars belief, really. But it's no blame attached to the specific football club, because that's what's been created and that's what they adhere to, because they want the best players. But it is, for me, the kids go into that system far too young. In terms of when I was growing up, I think I played for Arsenal as an under-13 player, but there was nothing to stop me doing other things alongside that. I could have played for my local grassroots club as well. It wasn't until you were 14 years old where you'd sign for one professional football club, and that'd be till you left school. So in my mind, it is just, obviously this is just my personal opinion, that children go into professional clubs way too early.
Yes, it's interesting. It feels like over the years that age sort of bracket for professional contracts seem to be creeping down and down and down. So I've seen that from my side as somebody that follows Arsenal, and I guess as the club at the top, you're just trying to beat your competition, aren't you? And so it makes sense to do that. But yeah, perhaps there's not that empathy there that there used to be or should be in the industry, because it's so money orientated nowadays, right? The Premier League, and I guess the fun part of it is taking a side kind of stage to that. Really, it's what it sounds like anyway from what you're describing. So I wanted to find out from your point of view then, what the class is all about other than having fun. I mean, I appreciate that's kind of the core element of it, but what are the kids learning as part of the Football Fun Factory, and when do they happen? How long are they for? What age groups? Yeah, tell us a bit more about it.
Yeah, so all of our coaches run sort of 3 core programs throughout the year. So during the week, all of our head coaches run a minimum of 3 evening sessions, usually 5 to 6 p.m, and that's called Football Fun and Development, and that's as close as we get really to traditional football coaching. So it's a coach with a team of support coaches on an Astro doing a football session for children, but done the Football Fun Factory way. So we do things slightly differently. When the children arrive, we go straight into arrival games, because I'm sure of anyone who coaches kids, when they get there, they'll say, when's the game? When's the game? So we sort of flip it a little bit and try and go straight into games to get the children's engagement straight away. Then we go into a fun session, which is sort of all around the kids just enjoying themselves, making a load of noise and smiling. The coach having what we find, if the coach is having a good time, the children tend to have a good time as well. Then we'll go back into games before more of a development session, again with the emphasis on fun. But the children, how we see development coming is children playing football are going to develop, regardless if they're queuing up, waiting to take a shot. We try and have all of our sessions where every child has a football each, and they're engaged in the session all the time. So no queues, no standing around, children constantly on the move. So that's how the Football Fun and Development sessions, they're 1 hour sessions. At the weekends, our head coaches run Football Tots Fun, which is an incredible program for children from 2 to 5 years old. They're run indoors, usually in a community centre, leisure centre, village hall, that sort of thing. And that's run inside our inflatable football pitch, which obviously is an incredible visual for the parents and the children. And also it helps our coaches out, as it acts as a bit of a pen, because as you can imagine, 2 to 5 year olds tend to get running around all over the place. So that's that is a 45-minute session, and that is the first 15 minutes of sort of free play where the parents are involved as well. We've got huge footballs, little softballs, goals all over, and the children just go around. Then we run a 30-minute session. As you can imagine, that is not strictly football coaching, because we're just there to make sure that the kids are enjoying themselves. And that first experience is so important in anything that you do. And so if that first experience at 2, 3, 4 years old is a child in an inflatable football pitch, having loads of fun, they tend to then fall in love with football because of that, and then go on to the Football Fun and Development or into grassroots clubs and into games, whichever sort of pathway that they see fit for them. And then during the school holidays is where we run our football fun camps. So we run them again indoors, and that's where we use all of our football inflatables. So our inflatable pitch, inflatable darts board, and inflatable goal, which again is an incredibly
all looks too much fun. That
it is. The coaches set up extra early, so they get a good half hour, 45 minutes playing by themselves before the kids get there to join in. But again, it's a real unique experience for the kids to come, and that's a 9 to 3:30 day where of course they have an incredible time, an incredible experience. Other than that, our head coaches also offer sort of birthday parties and events where they'll go and deliver our inflatable experience to a venue of the birthday organizer's choice and whatnot. So it's that is sort of in a nutshell what the programs that we run and what our head coaches do.
That's really cool. And the inflatables, are they available for adults as well, for their birthday parties or whatever, for something
if you
different?
fancy it, get in touch. I'm sure we can sort something out.
I just want to kick a football at my wife, to be honest with you, and it'd be allowed. It sounds like a really great concept, and it just sounds like like the name of the company suggests, just a lot of fun for everybody, the coaches as well. So I really like the idea of it. But I know, coming from the franchising world, it's operated under a different kind of model to perhaps a traditional business, right? It's operating under a franchising model. So can you tell us a little bit about why you went down that route and what advantages that gives to the head coaches and to you guys that set up the business?
Yeah, so in terms of the Football Fun Factory, started 4 years ago now by James Cutting, our founder. And at the start of his journey, there was no plan to franchise the model. It was just James running his football program in a really small village, sort of just outside Cambridge. So the sort of franchising idea came along because, in terms of the territory, in terms of running a Football Fun Factory business, the territory doesn't have to be big at all. So in terms of us scaling and turning a Football Fun Factory into something that we want it to turn into, something that's worldwide, the world's leading children's football coaching organisation, we thought, and sort of the research that we've done, that franchising would be the best way of going about that, because you don't need a big space to do it. You can earn an incredibly good living. There isn't many full-time football coaching roles about. The sort of initial investment we try and keep as low as possible. So in terms of franchise, we just saw it as the perfect way of scaling quickly, not rushing, but scaling the UK to begin with, the most effective way possible through a franchising model, which is, again, we're new to franchising. We're 2 years old as a franchising company, but the sort of the research that we've done, when franchising is done well, it's an incredible model. When it's done badly, of course, like anything else, it falls down very quick. So how we've structured it is to try and really top load the support for our franchisees. So offer everything that we possibly can to make sure that our head coaches, franchisees, business flourish as quickly as possible. Again, not rushing, but getting to a position where our head coaches are turning over good profit in months 2, 3, 4 of operation. So
do the head coaches need to have a coaching background? Is this something that's like a prerequisite to join they'll buy into the franchise license, or is this something that you train in those early days?
Yeah, so all of our head coaches are sort of a minimum of level 1 qualified, as it were. So they're a football coach. We believe if their full-time role is going to be a football coach, they should have a qualification to sit behind that. In terms of what we're most interested in is the coach's ability to engage and inspire children. So we've got a whole range of head coaches, over 40 head coaches now, that range from level 1 qualified to UEFA A licensed level qualified. But the UEFA A licensed qualified coaches aren't better than our level 1s, because the Football Fun Factory is so sort of different to the norm of coaching and what it looks like. So we offer a full training program in an onboarding process on coming on board as a head coach, where the delivery of what Football Fun Factory sessions look like and is taken into sort of the minute detail and everything around running the Football Fun Factory and how it looks different to maybe the normal coaching sessions that coaches would have done in their past jobs or whatever they've done. What we are hugely passionate about working at a professional football club is the lack of opportunity, really, to coach full time. So what we're giving is an opportunity to coach full time in football, and if the head coach does their job effectively and we support them effectively, the returns in terms of what they make salary wise is a lot higher than what the average football coach would sort of earn even in a full-time role.
Okay, wow. So is Football Fun Factory something that needs to be full-time, or is it something that's part-time? So while they've got a coaching career, maybe they can do this evenings and weekends. How does it kind of fit in?
So we see the Football Fun Factory as a full-time role, like anything in life. I think the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. So what we're sort of offering is an opportunity for a head coach, a franchisee, to run their own business that they're accountable for, but obviously with the support of the franchise company. So what we don't expect people to just come on board immediately. Obviously, a lot of our coaches have got mortgages, kids to feed, etc. But we try and transition from their current full-time role into doing the Football Fun Factory role full-time over a 3-month period, which gives the opportunity to safeguard them first few months of the business operating. But we do find our head coaches, although the coach now is what I described earlier, they're not huge, it does offer our head coaches incredible work-life balance, which is so important in life in general, really, but also sort of the opportunity to be accountable for their own business. I think in an employed role, you're sort of working your socks off as a coach, sometimes 50, 60 hours a week, and probably not getting the reward you deserve. But running a Football Fun Factory franchise, like I say, if you can put that work in, the rewards are endless, really, in terms of getting participation on your Football Fun Factory programs.
Yeah, and I guess what you're offering is a clear route to make that business successful, right? Rather than trying to set up on your own and trying to create that brand, trying to create the pricing model, the advertising. You've got that all kind of in place already.
Yeah, and I think that is franchising, really. In a nutshell, yeah. It's a business in a box where, don't get me wrong, a lot of our head coaches could have gone off on their own and probably earn a decent living. I think we give the opportunity to probably go a bit above and beyond a decent living. But as importantly, I think doing your own thing is a lonely life sometimes when you're running your own business. I think being part of our team, and we have weekly team meetings, we have sort of breakout groups where sections of the team get together, and we do generally try and make it a real family feel, so everyone is engaging with each other, and we are a close-knit team that can lean on each other and help each other out, which is something, again, we're incredibly passionate about, of all of our head coaches, not just doing this and sort of going through the motions, doing this and absolutely loving it and making it a real turning point in someone's life, to running their own business and being part of something special and being something that they love being a part of too.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea, and it's something that a lot of kind of parents do in their spare time, right? They go along and coach their kids' teams or something like this. Well, if you're enjoying that, maybe that's a way to think, okay, let's get away from that boring job and make this full time through something like what you're doing, perhaps. So yeah, it's quite interesting, right?
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, do you think any Premier League players will ever take this up? Like, do you see any of them starting up a Football Fun Factory of their own? Could this be a route for ex-players, maybe?
Yeah, so we're sort of accessible for everyone. We've got, obviously, myself, a former professional player. We've got Isel McLeod, who I used to play with at MK Dons. He's running a franchise in Milton Keynes. So we've spoke to a number of ex-players, but the beauty of this, we're a team of over 40 now, and there's so much mixture in our team of 40 coaches. We've got a 20-year-old, a 59-year-old, everything in between, and so many different stories, so many different skill sets. But what brings us all together is that love of football and that love of using football for child engagement and developing children through the beautiful game. So in terms of whether it's an ex-footballer, we've got a couple who've done really well in terms of their franchise, but that grassroots coach that you talk about there, who's doing their kids team and think, I love this, I wish this could be my job. And it gives that opportunity, really, for everyone to have a career as a football coach.
Yeah, I think that's cool. They can all be aspiring Sir Alex Fergusons, right? Brilliant. Well, look, we're coming sort of to the end of our time, really. So I've got a few questions that I wanted to ask you, and the first one of those is, what's been the kind of funniest, weirdest, or strangest story you've had from within your career?
Oh my God, you put me on the spot there. I'll tell you a strange one. It's about sort of Football Fun Factory. So I sort of came out of coaching at a professional club, and I'd done my first football tots session, and it took me so far out of my comfort zone. I was in a local village hall inside my inflatable pitch, had 12 2 to 5 year olds, and because I was so used to that sort of elite side of the game, and I sort of sat them all down, told them all what I wanted them to do, had all my cones and that line about. They'd not listened to a word I said. Obviously they hadn't. They're 2 to 5 years old. They were throwing my cones all over the place, putting them on their head, and just watching them do that. And I started thinking, what am I going to do here? But then I just saw the smiles on their faces, and they were just booting around the big balls, but they were having fun, and it was their first experience of football. And I sort of just let it happen, which obviously you wouldn't be able to do if you were doing a professional football club. And at the end of the session, they all went out and they had massive smiles on their faces, and they were saying to mum or dad, when can I come back to football? And that just them saying that was so rewarding, in the fact that it was something I was so nervous about doing at the start. And that, without a doubt, is probably one of the strangest, most surreal moments of my sort of from one extreme to another in football, as it were.
Yeah, I've been to those sorts of sort of things for toddlers, you know. So my son went to one where it was chaos, absolute chaos. The ball's being kicked against me, kids are running into me, and I'm tripping over them, trying not to hit them with the ball. I know exactly what it's like. It's absolute chaos. But it's interesting. I didn't think about that, but that must be kind of a real kind of mental shift for you from going to training people in this professional environment where, you know, take it in turn, line up, shoot, you know, pass 1 2 and all those kinds of things, all those instructions, to just have at it, kids, you know, have fun. It must have been quite a difficult transition, I guess.
Yeah, without a doubt. But sort of stepping out your comfort zone, doing something completely different and doing it, it just made me think, like, this is what it should be. This is what the little tiniest children should be doing. Them just running around and just smiling, because if you enjoy something, you're going to carry on doing it, aren't you? And if it's a healthy social activity, what better for a parent than to see your child doing that?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So my next question is, what's been the most inspiring or proud moment, or both, that you've had within your career?
So I'd probably say at the end of my career, I signed for Cambridge United. So Cambridge United were the first team that I ever went to watch as a child. When I was 5, 6 years old, my dad took me to watch Cambridge, and that's probably what made me fall in love with football more than anything. Being so close to the players, sort of smelling the turf, hearing the crowd singing, it was mind-blowing for me at 6 years old. And that was always my dream then, from sort of 6, 7, 8, going through my teens, was to play for the team that I loved. So to have done that and to have fulfilled my dream at the very end of my football career is probably the proudest thing that I've done as a football player.
Yeah, that's awesome, because a lot of people, I guess, would assume that it was Man United win the league or something like that, but it's just going back to that those kind of dreams as a young person, and the things that you enjoyed. Yeah, it's really nice to hear that, actually, that Cambridge was the pinnacle of your career almost.
Yeah, and like, without a doubt, it's just sort of every night as a child going to bed and dreaming, and the fantasy was to play at the Abbey Stadium for Cambridge, and then I'm so grateful and fortunate that there's not many people that can say that they lived out their dream. And so to have done that, albeit at 34 years old, towards the end of my football career, is an extremely proud moment for me.
Nice one. So final question, I'm kind of moving into the franchising kind of arena now, just to find out that I'm just wondering if you have any advice for somebody who's maybe looking to buy a franchise license, so start up their own business under a different brand. What would be your one piece of advice that you'd give to them?
I think it's making that leap, isn't it? Whether you're going to go into a business, whatever you're going to do, it's sort of making the leap that's hard. That is the hardest thing to do. I think if you believe in yourself, then I think that is the key, isn't it? That sort of intuition. You can sort of roll things over in your mind for days, weeks, years on end before making that leap. I think if you know and can feel inside that it's a right decision, then that's the time to make the leap and sort of take that chance. You don't really get anywhere without taking a chance now and again. So I think it's just I think you just know sometimes that it's right. And then my advice would be, don't put it off. Go and do it, because if you don't, you're never going to know.
Awesome. Luke, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today, and for telling us a bit about Football Fun Factory. Really appreciate it. So thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks for having me.
No worries.